Welcome csc102 class online. I'm going to go over one of your first assignments, which is setting up your discussion board for student introductions. Now, I'm going to go to coursework first. And now this is closed right now. I'm in under faculty, so this isn't exactly the way you see it. But since it doesn't open until tomorrow when the semester starts, I'll just show it in my view right now. And I'll show these assignments that are not open yet, but the first few assignments the first week, in this kind of short week, is going to be an email assignment, which basically you're just going to reply to an email so that I can make sure that I have everyone's correct email. There's also a pre-test that you're going to take, which I'll just click on this and show you what it looks like. This is kind of behind the scenes. But if you preview the test, it kind of looks like this. It's just a multiple choice. There's only 20 questions. It's pretty easy. Even if you fail it, I'll give you 20 points just for doing it because it's a pre-test, post-test. So that's one of the assignments you'll be doing the first week. Also, there's the student introduction in the discussion forum. This will also count as your attendance. You can go through here and look at a description. It's not open right now, so it's going to go into the grading portion when I do it. If I go into edit, I might be able to see the description of it that I put in there for you to look at. And here's the description. Write a paragraph or two briefly introducing yourself to the online class. Now, I don't have to read this to you. Include background with computers, software, as well as any personal info and interests you'd like to share. And you will include a picture of yourself cropped and resized. Now, that's the second part of the assignment, so don't worry about that just yet. I'll show you both parts, but let's just focus on the first part. So I'm going to go back here, go back to coursework. Now, you can get into your discussion board just by going over here. You don't have to go through coursework. You could just go to discussion board, and I'm going to go down to student introductions. So I'm going to click on here, and hopefully it'll let me do one. And I'm going to add a post. There's already one in here, so I'm going to add a post. And I'm going to put me in here, and I'll just put my name. So if you have your name in the subject, you don't have to say like my name is Rich or whatever. So I could put something here about, I use whatever computers, I like horses, whatever you might want to put in here. I like cats, whatever you want to put in here is fine. It's nice to know some personal information, especially for an online class, then other people could kind of relate to you and things like that. So a paragraph or two is nice, and you don't have to put a picture in it. So I'm just gonna copy and paste this a bunch of times. Horses or whatever. I don't dislike horses. I just don't have anything to do with horses. I like to look at them when I see them. But anyway, I'm going to put a picture in here then. So that's all you have to do. Keep in mind in here you can highlight this and make it a little bit bigger. It's 11 point right now. 12 point probably looks a little bit bigger. And there's other things you could do to spread this out, but that's probably fine for now. Keep in mind some of these tools here, you can add links, you can add images. This thing here with the little mountain and sunshine, you can add an image, and that's what we'll do to add an image when we do that. But all you have to do right now for your intro post after doing that, and you could check out my post, and if you need any ideas or look at someone else's, so I'll just hit submit. So that's all you have to do for now. So that's your original post. And that's the first part of your assignment. Then for the second part of your assignment, I might as well do that right now. You can go back into it. You don't have to do this right away, but you could go back into it and hit edit. And then when you're ready to, you're going to put a picture of yourself. So I'm just going to go here and hit enter, and it should put a space there. And now I don't have a picture yet. And what I want you to do with this assignment is to edit a picture. And obviously you can use Photoshop or things like that, but I'll show you something to use online that I think is really cool. We used to use something called Pixlr, but for this semester we're going to use something called Photopea. So I'll show you that right now and show you a few tools with that. So I found a picture of myself. This is actually from a video that I had. And it's a still shot from the video because I'm smiling and I don't have a lot of pictures where I'm smiling. So I'm going to use this thing, and then I'm going to crop it for a headshot and take it down to about 250 pixels. So this is in Google Photos, so that's a good way you can put something online and then use it with this online tool. So I'm going to click on this, and here's the picture of me. My head's a little crooked, and I'll fix it a little bit. But what you can do here is in Google Photos or Google Drive as well, I'm just going to right click on here and say copy image address, not copy image. Now you could certainly open up an image from your computer if you have it on your computer, but I'm going to copy image address, and then I'm going to go over here and another tab, and I'm going to open up something called Photopea. It's like photo and then Pia. Here it is, Photopea. And like I said, I used to use Pixlr, and I have videos with Pixlr, but Photopea is very much like Photoshop, and I like it, and it works with native PSD files like Photoshop does. So So it's a pretty cool program, and it's easy to use, and it doesn't require a Flash plugin, so that's a good thing too. So I'm going to open this up. Now there's some things that aren't perfect about it. The selections are hard to see. Now you can see you can open from computer. So if you have an image on your computer, you could just open from computer and you could go navigate and find it. Or if you have something online like in Google Drive or Photos or somewhere like that, you can also open from a URL. Now it doesn't say open URL down here, but if you go File, Open from URL, now I already copied it. So I'm going to paste it in here. So again, I went here and I right clicked and I did copy image address. You want the URL, which is the image address, so I'll copy that. And I'll go back to Photopea and I'll paste it in here. So I'll do Control V or Command V. If you're on a Mac, Command V. If you're on Windows, it would be Control V. And I'll hit OK. Now, Photopea is completely free. It just shows ads over here, which is fine. It doesn't seem to get in your way too much, although they are animated. Now this is an image of me. Now I'm going to crop this and then resize it. So the first thing I'll do is crop it. So I won't worry about resizing it yet. So I'm going to crop it. Now over here in the toolbox, and I think they might do them on, or no, they don't have them on two. I like them on two columns here, but this is on one column. There's a crop tool here. You can also use a rectangular selection, but I'll use the crop tool. And I'll just draw a box around my head just to kind of get a little tighter on my head, and I think you can move this around. Now it's not as easy to see as in some programs, but I'll just bring that in a little bit. You can resize it. You have to kind of, some programs they'll kind of gray out everything around it so it's easier to see. Now the nice thing here is if you just hit enter or return, whatever works for you on your computer, that okays it and it's cropped. But what's nice is if I take this arrow up here, I could still move this around a little bit. So I could still kind of recrop it. And also what I could do is if I go edit, transform, I'll do free transform, I can even rotate it because my head's a little crooked here. So I'm going to just rotate this a little bit. Even though it's making the paintings in the background crooked, it's making my head a little straighter, and I like that. So I'm just going to do that, and I'll hit enter again. So I straighten my head a little bit. Now anything else I could do here? Well, I might whiten my teeth a little. I might brighten the picture just a little bit. And I could do that through, and I'm going to do all this before I resize it. So I did crop it, but that didn't resize it. It just kind of took away all the extra. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and I'm going to go to Levels. And Levels basically shows, I'll move this aside here, it shows kind of the highlights and the lowlights or the shadows and the midtones. Now there's not a lot of darks here, so I'm just going to lighten it, and I see a little gap here. That means there's not a lot of highlights. Now there is a little bit here. There's a painting in the background, but on my face is kind of very much a midtone, so I could lighten this a little bit. I'm just going to move this highlight slider over to where that kind of ends. Now I don't want to go too far, because if you go too far, you're going to start bleaching out things. So I just want to go as far as I see that little break there. Now obviously the picture you could have more of a grayish photo. You could have one that's really high contrast. This is a little lower contrast, but it's not a bad photo. I'm actually adding a little contrast. I could even darken the darks a little bit, not too much. And if I want to lighten the midtones, I could lighten my face a little bit, but it doesn't look bad. I want some contrast in there. And that I shouldn't have to do anything down here right now. This would lighten shadows and darken the highlights, which we wouldn't have to do. So that's okay for now. So you do have to hit OK. Don't just X out of here, because it won't take what you just did. So I'm going to hit OK. And then what I'm going to do next is try to whiten my teeth. Now, my teeth don't look too bad there, but I'm going to zoom in. So I'm going to do Command+, and I could zoom in here. And it's looking a little scary as I zoom in closer. But anyway, I'm going to go to this. There's a lasso tool here, and they have a polygonal lasso. That means you could do straight lines with it. I'm going to choose that one, and I'm just going to go here and I'm going to click just on my teeth. I'm going to go around my teeth here. Now it's really hard to see. In Photoshop you could see this selection a little bit better, but this is really hard to see. That's the only one of the few things that are a little that I don't like as much about this. And if you click on the end, you should be able to double click, and then you should get this dotted line. Now it's really hard to see, and sometimes you could get messed up doing that, but just try to get where you started and double click. Now I have my teeth selected with that little dotted line. And again, it's very faint, so it's hard to see, but that means I only have those pixels selected. And to make my teeth whiter, what you want to do is you want to cool them down. You don't just want to make them brighter, you want to cool them down and make them be less yellow. People don't want to have their teeth looking yellow, and I don't either. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, even though teeth are naturally more on the yellow side. I'm going to go Image Adjustments, and I'm going to go to Photo Filter. And this is the same thing I do in Photoshop. I'd go to Photo Filter, and right away it made them orange, which I don't want. But I can click on here and change the color to a blue color, because that would be a cool color. And you have to OK the color first and hit OK. And now you can see my teeth look very blue, but I don't want my teeth blue, so I'm going to take this slider down to maybe something like 10% or something like that. Now again, this would change based on what kind of photo you're doing. Maybe your teeth are perfectly white, you wouldn't have to do this. But I'm just putting like a 10% coolness on here to cool down my teeth, and then I'll hit OK. And while they're still selected, I'm even going to go back to levels, which I did before, and I could even brighten the teeth just a little bit. Now, I don't want to do too much because, you know, it'll look exaggerate. You know, I don't need like sparkling white teeth like that, but I might just want to just tweak it a little bit, especially if the photo's smaller. I want my teeth to look nice and white. See, this is better than going to the dentist. You could just do it here. And I'll hit OK. And now to get rid of this selection, meaning that dotted line thing, I could just go Select, Deselect, or Control D. They have the shortcut here. And there. So I have that. So I'm going to zoom out again. I'm going to use, on a Mac, I'm going to use Command minus. On Windows, you could do Control minus and zoom out. And they do have a zoom tool down here that you could use. Now I haven't, where you could kind of zoom in and out like that. That's kind of like a scrubby zoom, meaning it's not letting me draw a box around the area I want to zoom into. But wherever you go and you start scrolling, it'll zoom you into that. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. What I'll do now is resize it, because I don't want to put it into my discussion forum where it's gigantic. So what I'll do is I'll resize it, and I'll do that. I'll just click on my arrow here, and I'll go to Image. And this would be the same thing in Photoshop. You go to Image, Image Size. So not Canvas size. I'm going to go to Image Size. And you can see it's 524 pixels by 583. And in the instructions, I think I mentioned something like 250 pixels. I'll have to double check my instructions again because I don't have them open right now, but I think it's something like that. And if not, I'll change them to 250. But you can resize your image in the discussion board area, but I'm going to take them down to 250. Now, if you see that lock there, that means it's going to lock to proportion, so you won't make it like, you know, really narrow or wide. It'll keep these things locked together, and it should do that by default. So I'm going to go in here and highlight this and just put 250. And I might say 150 on the sheet, but 250 should be okay. And even though that says 583, you don't have to put 250 in here. Just put 250 on the width and hit OK. And there it is. And now it took away all those extra pixels that I don't need. And one last thing I could do here is I could use a little sharpen filter because I did resize it. So I'm going to go down to sharpen. Now you might say, well, I'm just going to use sharpen. But if you go down to unsharpen mask, they give you some settings here. Now I'll zoom into here. Let me cancel this just a second and zoom in closer so I could see this a little bit better. And once again, I'll go to filter and I'll go to sharpen unsharp mask. It doesn't sound like the one you'd use, but actually it is. Now you can see right now it looks kind of weird. It's adding like that real halo effect and really bright. I don't want that. And I want to put my radius down here to about like 2. And you should see it start to go back to normal. And then up here, and if you put preview on and off, you might see it go back to kind of normal. And then down here, I'm going to do it maybe 100%. And if you're not sure, just click on here, do it before and after. And even 100% looks like a little too much. You just want a subtle amount of sharpness here just because we resize it. So I usually use somewhere between 50 and 100. So maybe I'll go down to like 60 and see how that looks. And I'll put preview on it. It's a little sharper. It brings out, you know, some detail around my eyes and mouth a little bit. Not that that's that important, but it adds some crispness to it. And make sure that you hit OK when you're done. And that's fine for now. So that's all you really have to do with your photo. Now, this is kind of temporary. We're working, you know, on the web. So what I can do is I could either save it or I can just export it as a JPEG. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to File. And I don't need to save it as a PSD. That would be like a Photoshop document. And if I was working with layers, I could do something like that. But for now, what I could do is just export as JPEG, because JPEG would be a format appropriate for photos like that. So I'll use this format. And one thing it doesn't do, it doesn't let you give it a name, I don't believe. I know Pixlr would let you give it a name, but let's just see what happens here. So it's 250 by 278. You could see that it did keep it in proportion. And I'm going to hit Save. And it just puts it as a download. It doesn't let you name it. So it's in my downloads right now. So I'm just going to go to Downloads and just find my downloads. And there it is. And it has some ridiculously long name on it. So I'm going to rename this, and you can rename if you like. And I'll just call it HomaDBPic. I'll put DBPic. And I'll keep the .jpeg after it. So I want to make sure I keep the .jpeg. If you don't have that on Windows, I'll even show you where you can change your file names. But I'm on the Mac, I like to see my file name, so I'm going to make sure that it has the .jpeg on it. If you don't see that on Windows, then just leave it alone. But you just change the regular name, so I'm going to do that. And I know it's in my downloads. Now I could move it somewhere else, but you could keep it in your downloads if you don't think you're going to use it for anything else. And now I'm going to go back to my discussion forum. And remember, I had this open. Now, if you're going to be in here a while, close this up and edit it again. But actually, what I could do here, I hit return. Now, remember, you want to put this after your paragraph about using computers and liking horses. And what you could do here is if you just use this little insert image icon, if you just click there, and then this little folder thing, just go find it. And you'll come into this Moxie Manager, which is almost useless for students, because you're not going to reuse anything, but you're going to have to go to Upload. And I'm going to go to Downloads, because that's where my image is. And it's in alphabetical order right now. I really need to clean up my downloads. HomaDBPic, there it is. That's the one. So I'm going to hit Open. And now it's uploaded into this Moxie Manager. Then hit Insert, or Insert. And you don't have to put any image description. You don't have to put anything else in here. You just have to hit OK. And there it is. And you can see 250 is probably a little on the bigger side. 150 is probably better. But if you go right here on the corner, you could just resize it yourself and put it down to 150. That'll work too. I wanted you to get it down as close to the small size, but going down from 250 to 150 isn't a big deal. If you ever need to select it, you do have to highlight it in here. So if you need to resize it again, just highlight it, like just drag backwards through it, and then you can make it, if you look at your picture and you're like, wow, that's really big. I want it smaller. You can do that. Or if you need to delete it, just highlight it, and then you can hit delete. I'm just going to hit undo right now, Control Z or Command Z, and undo that. So there's my picture in there, and that's all you have to do is just get a little pic in there, just a little headshot. But I would like you to go into Photopea and just work with some of these tools here. We may do a little bit more with these. As long as you exported it as a JPEG, you don't really need this thing anymore. So you can close out of here, and you don't have to save it, and that's it. And there's other things we can do with Photopea, but just as a beginning, remember what we did was, we cropped it, we did some image editing, I rotated it a little bit, we used levels, and we resized it using image size. And I could review that again, or you could just watch the video again from the beginning because it's not very long. So that's what you're going to do for your first couple assignments. So for your discussion board, it should look like this. And I'll probably put this picture in my other area too, so I have more of an updated picture, or at least more current. I think this is from the summer. So I'll just hit submit, because I think I have to submit again once I save it. They don't have a save button, so you'll just hit submit. And there it is. There's my sample student thing, and I have to edit it again because I have two parentheses that I didn't see in here. It was hard to see this. So I'll get rid of the parentheses in there, but that's all I need for that. So you don't have to put sample student. You just have to put your name and put something about you, and just like the thing I have in my instructor introduction. But that's all you have to do is just hit submit, and you're done with those assignments. So going back to coursework, remember your first couple assignments are going to be your email assignment, which is real easy. You just reply to my email and just follow the instructions. You're going to take a pretest. You're going to do the student introduction in the discussion board forum, and then you'll do the pic using Photopea. Unless you want to use Photoshop or something else, if you have experience, that's fine too. But I like Photopea. I think it's a real cool online free editor instead of using Photoshop if you don't have to. So that's for your first couple assignments for the first week. And this video, I think, will be under the intro word area to do that before we do some of the word assignments.